Hello friends, welcome back. Hope you are doing well. Welcome to welcome back to the series of AWS Solution Architect Associate. This is the third video where we are going to discuss and perform some practicals on Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. So this is again we can consider a series of individual videos on virtual private cloud. We are going to set up multiple videos tutorial on VPC because VPC is one of the key and core concept of the Amazon Solution Architect Associate program. So we are going to set up multiple videos on it. So first we are going to have an introduction part, what are the different component of the VPC, and then in the next or the upcoming video we are having some practicals on how to create VPC, how to create subnets and all the other stuff. So let's start with the introduction part. What is virtual private cloud? Virtual private cloud again a core service, as I mentioned earlier. So these are the agenda in this topic: introduction, key VPC concepts, VPC architecture, VPC components, VPC best practices. So introduction. So let me brief about the key concept of networking. If we talk about the previous way of implementation in term of networking, if we want to set up a networking in term of physical infrastructure, we need to have some plan diagram. For example, if the building consists of 5 floors, we have to set up a network in a way that each and every computer or device, or we can say the persons who acquire network things, he or she can use network easily. So we have to set up a network in a such a way. So same scenario, we have to set up on the cloud. Is if we compare with the classic way of implementation networking, if for example if we have the office in premise, then we have to set up router, switches, the Wi-Fi devices and other stuff. We need to have a setup of security rules. The persons need to be access these ports or these services. So those things we are supposed to be going to replicate on VPC. So the AWS VPC is one of the most popular and widely used service of Amazon Web Service. This is generally because Amazon VPC is mostly related to security concept in the cloud and access the data inside a third party data center, because we are going to set up a kind of infrastructure. If we compare with universal or the classic way of implementation, so VPC is designed in a such a way that we can just replicate our classic infrastructure with cloud infrastructure. AWS VPC is a private subsection of AWS in which you can place AWS resources such as EC2 instance, database and other services. So as far as if the access of the, for example, if the EC2 instance required to access from private infra only, then we can set up VPC in a such a way that instance should be only accessible on private way, not the public infrastructure. Same way in database, we can conclude that only these resources can access the database. So such kind of restrictions or such kind of setup we can achieve using VPC. You have full control over who has access to resources that you place inside the AWS Virtual Private Cloud. By default, Amazon provide a default VPC with having the subnets, route tables, internet gateway and other stuff. When you create your own VPC or you can get custom VPC, you have full control what thing that you want to access from external or internal and how they being communicate, you have full control over the Amazon private cloud. So this is the basic introductions. Let move further. Key VPC concepts. These are the key concept, or we can say the component which include in a VPC. One is subnet. As we know that in classic way of implementation, some of the computer or we can say the group of computer won't require any internet connectivity or won't require any kind of external communication. So we put in a separate subnet, or we can say the private subnet. Some of the subnets required to have internet connectivity, or we can say the access from the external network. Those we can consider as a public subnet. So similar, we can create a public, private, or we can see the hybrid subnet. According to as requirement of the resources, we can create the subnets. Subnets are nothing but the group of the computer or group of the infrastructure where we can just apply common policies. Second one is CIDR block. CIDR block again we can consider as the total number of infrastructure instance hosts, or you can say the total number of IP address which we require to assign in our network. According to that, we can adopt a CIDR block. For example, if the total number of resources are less than 100, 150 or 200, we can consider as class C, or you can consider in /24 notation, or we can say if more than 256, or we can say around 2000, 5000, or more than 30, 50,000, it should consider under class B, or we can say consider in under /16 notation. If more than that, then we can consider as /8, that means the class A. So these are the CIDR blocks we need to define according to our requirement of network. Security group. Security group you can consider similar to our firewall, or we can say what we need to allow, what we need to like for example, if I want to allow port number HTTP on selected instance, I can say, set up a rule for port number 80 should be accessible from this. Then we have network ACL access control list. Again, a list where we can define which thing needs to be allowed, which thing need to be blocked. If the deny priority is high, then all the things has been blocked. Is the ACL is work on the basis of the rule numbers. The less number is having highest priority. And the route table. Route table is again we can consider how the traffic is being managed, which things are going to for external communication and which are for internal way. So let's discuss more on the key concepts. These are the this is the VPC architecture. Architecture is depend on the usage of the infrastructure. For example, if all the instance need to be accessed internally only, there is no concept of public subnet, or we can say there is no requirement of internet gateway for external communications. But in an ideal scenario, some of these systems require internet connectivity with having external access. So this is the basic VPC architecture with having this including all this stuff. First, let's start with the last line, which include the region. Region is one of the most selective way of implementation. The infrastructure where you want to set up. If my targeted audience would be from US, I need to set up under US. If my target audience would be on India, I need to set up on India. Where do I have multiple region like India in Mumbai, we have Hyderabad, or the next location would be Chennai or anyway. Then second line would be like this is our region where we just first select with the this VPC. VPC should be named with one logical name, like any of the naming convention you can select. In this scenario, it shows as Cloud Guru. We need to have one CIDR block. As I explained earlier, we need to select CIDR value. So here we can consider 10.0.0.0/16. Slash 16 consists of class B environment, in which I have two subnets. One is public subnet. It's defined under 10.0.1.0/24, which is part of our main VPC, and private subnet, which is 10.0.2.0/24. So this is two subnets. First, we do have instance, or we can consider EC2 instance, or we can consider as RDS, or anyway. Then instance attached with security group. Security group, as I mentioned earlier, it's a kind of list of rules, which things need to be allowed, which thing needs to be blocked, and which from where. Then we do have network ACL. Network ACL, again, it's as I mentioned earlier, it is a list of the rule, or we can say consider from external to internal, internal to external. Then route table, uh, how traffic is being communicated from external to internal and internal to external is managed using route table. We do have the router. uh, Router is similar to like we if we want to have internet connectivity on the local infrastructure, we need to set up one router with ISP uplink. Similar, if we want to have external connectivity with internet, we need to set up a router where we can consider private virtual private gateway, and one internet gateway attached to router, because how your traffic being communicated to external entities is only managed through the internet gateway. So this is the VPC architecture. Your architecture would be different, but the thing, it should be consist public, private subnet, ACL, security group, route table, and all the things which I mentioned here. So all the things I explained earlier, let me just one brief once again. Region, as I mentioned, Amazon EC2 hosted in multiple locations worldwide. These locations are composed of region and availability zone. Internet gateway, it is horizontal, scalable, redundant, and highly available VPC component that allow communications between instances in your VPC and internet. Route table, it contains the set of rules and called routes that used to determine where traffic is being directed, and each subnet in your VPC must be associated with route table. The table control routing for the subnet. Subnet can only associated with one route table at a time. So if I create one subnet, public or private, so that subnet is associated with one route table. The same subnet cannot associate with multiple route table. But you can associate multiple subnet with same route table. Like if I created 5 subnets, then I can associate all 5 subnet to one route table. Network ACL, it is an optional layer of security for your VPC that act as a firewall for controlling the traffic in and out. And you might set up the network ACL similar to security group in order to additional layer of security. Then we do have subnet. It is a logical subdivision of IP networks. The practice of dividing network into one or two network is called subnetting. As we already learned on this networking part, that we do have subnetting. Why we choose subnetting? To divide single network into multiple different network. AWS provide two types of subnetting. One is public, which allows to communicate over the internet, and second one is private, which is hidden from the private. Some of the infrastructure won't require to come accessible from the internet, like RDS database, or we can say consider some private repository, or we can say like private file structure file, or some private APIs. And last one is instance. It is similar to virtual machine. It consider EC2 instance. With EC2 you can set up configured operating system applications that run on instance. VPC components, again internet gateway, virtual private gateway, peering connections. If we want to communicate between two VPC, we can communicate using VPC peering. And elastic load balancer, we can also distribute traffic from multiple EC2 instances. This is the VPC based practice. These are the points considered for best practice. Properly configure routing table. Routing table configured in such a way that the unwanted traffic won't be managed or being transferred from the VPC. Secure VPC with network ACL and security groups. Use bastion host for remote communication. For example, if I have one internal infrastructure, so better to use bastion machine that publicly allow to limited IP addresses, or we can say the limited locations from where we can communicate over the internet to bastion machine, and using bastion machine we can connect the multiple instances. Regularly audit and monitor your VPC. VPC should be monitored regularly, and it should be audit. And yes, this is the basic introduction part. Let me just switch to the VPC service. So to find out the VPC, we can just search down the VPC. We do have the VPC isolated cloud resources. So by default, each and every region contain one default VPC and created by the Amazon. We can see under the VPC. This is basically a VPC dashboard where we can have the VPC, NAT gateway, subnets, VPC, peering connections, route table, network ACL, internet gateway, security groups, egress internet, and customer gateway. There are lots of services, or we can say there are lots of components are available with the VPC. So let me open the default VPC. This is the default VPC or VPC ID. Whenever we create a VPC, one VPC ID is associated with that. IPv4 CIDR value. Automatically IP address would be configured on the DHCP. Main route table. Route table is all automatically created, but we need to associate with that. Main network ACL. Tenancy is default. By default, it's a default VPC. Whenever someone create an instance on EC2 instance under US East 1, or we can say North Virginia, automatically it is a part of the default VPC. We need to select the additional one and the owner ID. So this is the basic key concepts of VPC. In next tutorial, we are going to create custom VPCs, custom subnets, internet gateway, DHCP options, elastic IP address, NAT gateway. Even we have the peering connections of two different VPC. So this tutorial will contain more than 3 to 4 videos only on VPC. So this is the introductory part of the VPC. Hope you guys understand what the VPC, what is VPC, and what are the key component of the VPC. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Kindly support this channel, and thank you very much.